Nof Klibber, hi friends, Darth Momo here. Today I thought I'd discuss a topic that I see pop up from time to time, and I know there's lots of different people with lots of different takes on this, so I thought I'd put in my 2 cents on what I think is truly a gray issue that a lot of people try to make a very black and white issue. And this is the conversation of whether the sequels will see a resurgence in love and appreciation, very much the same way that the prequel trilogy did in these last several years. There are lots of different people out there that I think tend to believe, no, the sequels suck, is what it is, they're never going to be loved. And there's lots of people that think, yeah, it's all just history, we've seen it before, the cycle will repeat, give it 15 years, 20 years or so, and the sequels are going to be loved again. And I don't think that's quite true either. I think the answer kind of lies somewhere in the middle of that question, because I think we have to look at why the sequels aren't liked now, and we also have to look at why the prequel trilogy wasn't liked and now is. So I think we need to go over some facts first off. I think whether you like it or not, it is a fact that there are people out there that do like the sequel trilogy. If you don't like it, you know, sorry you didn't like it. If you do love it, cool for you, glad you like it. But there are people out there that do like the sequel trilogy right now. The kids that grew up with them, they love them. There are plenty of fans out there that do like them. There are fans that didn't care for the prequels, still don't care for the prequels and like the sequels now. There are fans that just love all Star Wars and love the prequels and the sequels. There are people that may like just one of them or 2 of them, not necessarily all 3. And there are also many casual audience members that do like them. My grandparents, I showed them all the Star Wars movies a few years ago, and they liked all 9 of them. My father, I would say casual audience. He watches the live action stuff, watched animation with us growing up. He liked Force Awakens. The Last Jedi was alright. Didn't really care for 9. So there are people out there that like the sequels. Now to counter that, let's get some facts established on the other side of that. There are very different reasons why people didn't like the prequels and don't like the sequels. And I think that is key as to whether they're going to see a resurgence or not. For those that say it's just a cycle, there's a lot of different criticisms. There's some similar criticisms, I'm sure. But there are very much different criticisms. The prequels, it was more so a lot of cases of execution. There was how the film was presented in various ways, such as dialogue, acting, some of the way the characters were presented to us, the CGI, etc. There are not too many people that I'm aware of that don't like the overall concept of the trilogy. It's more so a lot of the execution of it. Yeah, there are people that don't like the basic story, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people who just, yeah, you know, the dialogue's a little corny, or yeah, the characters weren't made as the characters weren't as fleshed out as they could have been. And that is what I would call much more of a surface scratch. If we're looking at the prequel trilogy like a DVD, I would say those are very much surface scratches. And we can see that because we could take those very same concepts that the prequel trilogy brings us that a lot of people didn't care for, and we could put them into the animated Clone Wars, where there's a lot more time to flesh out characters, worlds, concepts, wars, etc. You name it. Pretty much everything in the prequel trilogy got fleshed out in the Clone Wars, and the response to the Clone Wars has been pretty overwhelmingly positive. Whereas you take something with the sequel trilogy where, yeah, maybe the characters were a bit more fleshed out. Maybe the dialogue's not really that corny. You know, maybe the acting is a lot better. But then you look at a lot of the basic stories and you still have, you know, pretty much resetting the point of the original trilogy and redoing it again. You know, you still bring back Palpatine. You still have Luke try to kill Kylo Ren, right? So a lot of people, I mean, there's some reasons the prequels found resurgence, right? part of it is just the people who had disdain for him, some of that's worn off. There are still plenty of people out there who don't like the prequels. I'm not one of them, but there are still plenty of people out there who don't like the prequels. Don't let that, don't let the positivity fool you. There are also a lot of people who just, they like them. They like the memes. The memes helped redeem that for them. And there are very much the kids that grew up that now love the prequels, but they always loved the prequels. And there's very much how the Clone Wars, as I said, it took the era and the story of the prequels and fleshed that out to something that a lot of people were actually able to get on board with. Here's the problem with the sequels, though. There have been calls from fans to say, hey, let's make a Clone Wars style show for the sequels. That's not going to quite cut it. That's not going to fix the issues, because you can, let's take the Bad Batch. Right now, the Bad Batch is in the middle of its 3rd season at the time of me making this video. And the Bad Batch is exploring the Palpatine cloning concept and idea and trying to pretty much say, like, hey, this was Palpatine's plan from the get-go. Which you could look at the saga as it exists now and say, well, hey, now it's trying to make it so the Rise of Skywalker didn't just pull this concept out of nowhere, that, you could say that in the long run of things that Palpatine had been planning this for a while. Okay, yes, you can make it so that it's not just shoehorned in there per se in the grand scheme of the canon, but you still have the fact that Palpatine's back from the dead. You can try and do whatever you want with Luke Skywalker and Ben Solo. You still have Luke giving in to impulses and trying to, even if it was for a brief moment, kill Kylo Ren. You can, try to make the First Order, Resistance, New Republic, I don't know even what you call that, the whole dynamic of those 3 factions. You can do whatever you want to flesh that out. And I would argue that some of the books have, but you still have the fact that basically Empire 2.0 is here to fight the Rebels 2.0, and the Empire comes back, and everything that Han and Luke and Leia and the Ghost Crew and Rogue One and all these people fought for throughout the original trilogy era, all for nothing, because the Empire just comes back. So I think that's also part of the problem, is no matter what you try to do to make a Clone Wars style show or to flesh out those concepts, you still have the fact that it still takes the story of the original trilogy and basically just says, that doesn't matter, we're doing that again. Whereas the prequels, in theory and in concept, they build up to the importance of the original trilogy. They just failed in the execution. And so you can flesh out Palpatine coming back all you want. He still comes back. He still survives Return of the Jedi. That's an irrefutable fact. So there are very much different reasons why the prequels and the sequels were not liked, and why the prequel trilogy was kind of able to overcome that and pass the test of time in the eyes of lots of fans. So at the end of the day, yes, there are people that like the sequels now. And yes, when the kids who loved them as they came out grow up and are old enough to have their voice heard on the internet, yeah, you're going to start to see a little bit of a resurgence in sequel love. But will it be on the same level as the prequels? No, I don't think it will. I think there are still plenty of people who don't like the prequels, and there are plenty of people who may have loved The Force Awakens when that came out, but by the time the trilogy was said and done, you lost a lot of people. And you can see the difference in the excitement for projects such as, the Mandalorian movie coming out, or the future Mandoverse shows, or even the Acolyte show, or James Mangold's show, as opposed to something like the Rey New Jedi Order movie. And not to say that that stuff can't be good, but you can make that stuff that's detached from the sequels, years in the future, and still have maybe an audience for that, but you're not necessarily gonna get the wide appreciation for the sequels the way that you kind of have for the prequels. So that's my thoughts. Obviously, we'll see what happens. Give it 15 years down the road. There could very well be a resurgence, but I think based off of some of the evidence, I don't think we're going to see a resurgence quite like the prequels. But that's my take on it. Thank you guys for joining in. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and may the Force be with you. Always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them in the light.